Very good afternoon to you. I'm Howard Feldman. This is the Synthesis podcast. Very excited today to be joined by the Mauritius Africa FinTech Hub. Sounds very, very complicated. It actually isn't. We had a chat with them a few weeks ago, just a general get together, and I was absolutely blown away by some of the initiatives and some of the ideas that they have with regard to fintech in Mauritius as well as for the rest of Africa. Joining me this afternoon is Michal Szymanski, who is pretty much the leader of this fantastic organization. Good afternoon. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Howard. Thanks so much for having me. And I wouldn't say leader as opposed to the coal-faced mine worker on the ground trying to make things happen.
Yeah, I hear it. I really, really do. So just give us an overview as to what the main focus or the main thrust of the organization is.
Awesome. So the initial idea came about many years ago, but it stemmed from trying to see if we can position and utilize everything that Mauritius has to offer to provide a greenfield environment for fintech innovations to thrive. And then if we could achieve that locally, could we then integrate into the rest of the continent and unite the various jurisdictions and ecosystems in a common cause? Because the type of innovations that are coming from this continent, in my personal opinion, are world-class and better than what the rest of the world is putting out. So the idea stemmed from how do we serve the ecosystem? Being a not-for-profit, being a facilitator, our goal is to drive and unite the ecosystem locally in Mauritius. How do we collaborate? How do we allow people to stop working in their silos, collaborate, stop wasting resources and trying to recreate a wheel for the benefit of people on the ground? And specifically in this scenario is with fintech and financial technology, which also obviously spans the financial inclusion element and everything else.
Okay, so let's just stop there, because the first thing that you said that I think would catch most people by surprise is that this continent is innovative and has the most amazing. Normally, we don't think of Africa as being innovative. Our perception of Africa is very often quite the opposite, maybe.
Yeah. So I've had the privilege of honor and working with in quite a few African countries. Fintech wasn't always my speciality, if you want to call it that. I had the privilege and honor of driving various incubation programs from engineering to fintech to edtech to biotech. And the more we were exposed, back when I was in South Africa, the more we were exposed to the rest of the continent, the more I realized over a 10-year period is that the ideas that we have in Africa are very user-centered and therefore needed. So they are brought up with the sense of trying to help somebody. And for me, that's the fundamental difference of the innovations and entrepreneurial drive between Africa and fundamentally the rest of the world. I tend to joke with quite a few people saying that, the rest of the world, their purpose is money first, and then they'll help when they have enough. In Africa, we actually start in reverse. We want to help our family. We want to help our community. We want to help our country. So because the people experience all the challenges on the ground on a day-to-day environment, they understand the nature of the problem. And therefore, being in an environment, they are able to come up with solutions that are not only more innovative, but relevant and understood by the people facing those challenges on the ground. So therefore, that with a couple of other combination of factors such as purpose, you get to see these beautiful innovations that are world class. If I can mention, I had one in Uganda where they were developing a non-invasive malaria test using magnets and lights. Which was 1/100th of the cost, and within 2 minutes getting an answer whether you had malaria. Because the entrepreneurs, when they started out, one of their family members died from malaria in their country.
They're living this. They're living
Yeah,
the problems they're trying to solve.
100%. And so it was very personal for them, so this is just some of the type of innovations, if you go all the way through Malawi to Kenya to even South Africa, in South Africa, there was a great innovation of, how do we harness the power, not solar energy for backpack for school, but 3G towers. So the signals they send out, for me, that's a little bit dodge, right? Because everybody shows us that all of these signals are perfectly fine.
I think 5G is the problem. That's the one we get with our vaccines.
Yeah, so everybody tells us everything's fine, and yet there's a mechanical engineering idea that came up that said, because solar might not be always sustainable, 3G towers are everywhere, and therefore, if we capture those signals and transfer it into energy, but you see, these are the type of innovations that are coming out from this continent. And then when we move more specifically towards the fintech area, where we're seeing a massive issue of people on the ground participating in the formal digital economy. You're still seeing, well, today it's much better, but 5 to 7 years ago, people were being, excuse my blatantness, robbed during daylight. Because I work abroad, I'm sending money home to my family to support them, and 10 to 20% of those funds went between middlemen, making sure the money arrives. Come on, it's 20, it was back then, it was 20, for 2015, 2016. Why are we still charging such massive fees on a simple service like that? And the people on the ground suffer the most. In my current situation, $1 here or $1 there, I'm in a privileged situation where it might not matter, but those type of numbers add up for the people and the context of this continent. So in this space, we're seeing a lot of innovations coming to market. We're seeing a lot of crowdfunding initiatives that are servicing not only the SME sector, where traditional financial institutions have forgotten about them, or they don't have some formal credit scoring and are denied access to finance. They might need it short term. And in SA, Mauritius, Kenya, and other jurisdictions, we're seeing entrepreneurs building those companies which are sustainable. So yes, they're there to make money at the same time, but technologies allowed them to utilize scale, so it brings the cost factor down, and those savings can therefore be passed on to the people on the ground. So the innovations, in my opinion, and I'll shout it on every street, whether I'm in UK or Singapore, without bias, I make them very aware that they are not only user-centered, the purpose is good. The purpose is to help people, which is fundamentally different from what I believe from the more developed economies, if you will, but they're beautiful.
So, I mean, that's incredible to hear about all the different innovations, the way in which problems are solved throughout the continent, including South Africa and Mauritius. Is that how does the organization then decide who to assist, how to get involved, and whose organization to be part of?
So from our side, we are at the moment still very much fintech focused, but as an ex-entrepreneur, I would personally, I'd love to help everyone, and we do to some extent. We're also starting to branch out into what we call non-fintech for fintech for non-fintechs. So, developing the fintech industry is one thing. Driving adoption and participation of the digital economy is a totally different thing. But then, the beauty of fintech is that it's a convergence technology, meaning that no matter what industry you're in, whether you're in fishing, mining, agriculture, money needs to move from point A to B. And how do we do it cheaply, securely, and quickly to make sure that the money gets there? So from our side, we are growing ourselves. We've got over 50 members from 7 different countries around the world. We ourselves are a startup, so we're just over 2 years old ourselves. But if we could help everyone, we would. But fundamentally, what we look for at the moment is building a membership or a family that resonates the same values as us. In other words, yes, money is important, but it's second to what we are trying to achieve. The first thing is, can we do good? There's a lot of initiatives that around the globe that say tech for good. And for us, that's the purpose of what we are trying to achieve. So that's our first and foremost criteria. We've also rejected some global corporates around the world who'd want to be part of this movement, if you will, because we're not a sales agency. We are agnostic. We are not here to benefit anybody in particular. We're here to benefit everyone if we can. So we're actually quite picky. And it's always great to meet individuals, and they are out there, such as yourselves, for example, that the spirits and values resonate between us, and therefore, by working together, we can not only unblock the constraints, but also make some magic, hopefully, together.
Absolutely. It's interesting that Mauritius geographically just sits off the coast of Africa. To some extent, that's almost a metaphor for what I think is a very unique ability to be close enough to feel part of it, but also look in without being geographically situated in a South Africa or a Kenya or a Uganda. Speak to me about that.
So it's, I think there's some good and bad to that. As you can tell, my accent is South African, so I miss home. This is a very beautiful, as I tell everybody, God's gift to mankind from a venue perspective. But it doesn't quite feel like Africa. I think Mauritius is a part of it, and it's recognized part of it, but it's almost a hybrid. And because from a geography perspective, geological, I don't know the right word term there, we sit halfway between Asia and Africa. The environment, therefore, builds a greater understanding and building a bridge almost between the East and Africa. So it's got an African feel, it's got a East feel or an Asian feel, but it is positioned in a great place to take advantage of some of the good work that's happened locally, positioning itself as an international financial center, without almost getting involved or too deep on the continent, where there might be past history or something else that might be blocking them from trying to achieve certain goals in the future. So it is it's a great place to be. It's got a bit of both, but personally, I do miss home, and I do miss Africa some days.
Yeah, well, I'm sure you miss South Africa a lot less on the days that you can go to the beach. In terms of COVID and the global pandemic, what has the impact been in terms of Mauritius? I imagine there were both positive and negative aspects.
So if I can be blatantly honest, I think COVID was a blessing for the drive of the digitization of the Mauritian economy, not from a human element, but from a driver of innovation. So Mauritius has handled the crisis quite well, generally across the board. We had very few cases. We had a very short lockdown last year. We've had very little negative human casualties, if you will. But it obviously has hit the tourism sector quite hard, which is, Mauritius reminds me a little bit of the Western Cape in SA. Primarily agriculture and tourism are some of the two key drivers. So it's been quite hard hit. I think the financial services sector has been quite resilient. I think the relationships that they've built and their track record over the last 20, 25 years has spoken volumes for themselves. And that's why we're still seeing a lot of retention of clients and new business coming in. So it hasn't impacted us as many people around the world. Probably total, we've had about 3 months of lockdown. Last year, we ended it June or July, and the 6 months was normal. Only recently did we go back into lockdown light, as I like to call it. Still gatherings of 50 people or less. But it's day-to-day activity. So on the one aspect, it's affected a lot of sectors quite negatively. But on a fintech sector, Howard, let me tell you, the success stories, not only in Mauritius, but on the continent, and specifically in the sector, are astounding. Because no longer can people avoid digitization. Not only the incumbents and the financial institutions, it's been forced upon them as a new norm. And so what that means is that, even regulation has had to shift where, opening a bank account, it's still required in person to go there. You can't do that now under medical quarantine effectively, right? So now you're starting to digitize the process, which actually saves human beings' lives and time. And time is one of the biggest savings of fintech at the end of the day, because if I don't have to go in the bank, if I don't have to catch the taxi, if I don't have to stand in a bank queue, if I don't have to pay bank charges to withdraw my money, it's actually being a massive boost and shifted the local.
It's really forced the island into the space.
100%. But not only the island, but the regulators, which for me is quite critical, because outside of medicine, it's the second most regulated industry around the world. And if the regulators don't move, no matter how much you scream and shout from the mountains, nothing will happen. Right? 100%. So it's been great from a regulatory fintech environment building, if you will. But obviously, we've had negative impacts on the ground as well.
Right. Tell me the most exciting thing that you can think of moving forward now in terms of Mauritius, Africa, innovation. Where's this all going? Or where does it, rather, let me rephrase it, where does it have the potential to go?
5 years down the line, or 3 to 5 years down the line. Personally, I'd like to see this to be the Singapore of Africa. What that means is that we have so much innovation, diversity from people around the globe, potentially setting up offices here and using it as a base of operation and then launching out into the African continent. We're really seeing this on a day-to-day. We're even seeing SA FinTech setting up shop in Mauritius as their first port of call. But then their next step is, for example, Kenya. We're seeing a lot of other companies utilizing the same trend. But for me, the main big win would be, Canada is one of the most innovative countries in the world because they have so many people from different nationalities and background. And, it breeds a sense of understanding of each other, a lot more tolerance, a lot more understanding about the various challenges faced in different environments. So if Mauritius could become that Singapore, at the moment we have 1.3 million people, but if we had 1.3 million other people from 67 different countries around the world, you're creating a place where ideas bounce around, you open conversations. That's a big win, and then your solutions are scaled into the continent and adding value to people's lives on the ground.
Absolutely incredible. Michal Szymanski from the Mauritius Africa FinTech Hub. Fascinating and wonderful to speak to you. Your enthusiasm, your approach is just so energizing, and I wish you luck, and I wish us all luck on our journey together. I'm Howard Feldman. This has been a Synthesis of Podcast with me, Howard Feldman. Don't forget to subscribe below so that you can be alerted when our podcasts become available. Stay safe. Be well. God bless.